Okay, next slide.
Oops. Having some trouble going forward here.
You have to move the cursor over to that screen.
Let's see. Oh, hit. Oops. There we go. There we go.
Okay, so Hawaii SBDC, we are the Maui Center. And again, we are a small business technical assistance organization. Next slide. So we are a federal and state partnership. We are funded in part by the SBA and in part by the state of Hawaii. The ramification of that funding is that the services that we offer are little to no cost to you. Next slide. We are part of the America's SBDC network. There's over 1,000 SBDCs nationally, generally organized by states. Next slide. And in the state of Hawaii, our network consists of 5 advising centers. So we have the Maui Center, which is who I am the center director for. We have a nice big one on Oahu. And then on the Big Island, we have 2. We have one on the Hilo side, one on the Kona side, and then on Kauai. Next slide. So what is it that we do? What is a small business technical assistance? Next slide. So primarily what most people see is that we provide one-on-one business advising and assistance, right? And this advising can be anywhere from startup, pre-venture conversations, financing, all the way to the end of the spectrum, which would be exit strategies. Again, it's no cost to you and it's confidential. We have over 1,000 clients statewide. And then we also provide, in addition to the one-on-one advising training, so workshops and seminars, much like today. Next slide. So the other thing that we do that is timely is that as a partner for SBA, we are helping with the disaster loan assistance that the SBA is offering. So what we do is provide physical and or informational assistance. The relief, it's clarifying the difference between relief, which is immediate, versus repair, versus restore and rebuild. And then even though we deal with businesses, we also try to make clear the difference between what's available for businesses versus what's available for individuals. And then the other concept is that there are disaster loans for physical damage, which I think is obvious to most people. But what may not be obvious to businesses is that there are loans for economic injury. So just as an example, many of the vacation rentals, many of the restaurants, many of the service providers, we're all seeing huge drops in sales because we have no visitors coming in. And even the local people are not feeling that they should go out and have dinner and things like that when, you know, they could be donating money and funds. So that situation is considered caused by the disaster. And so there are disaster loans for physical or for economic injury. And then the last thing is we also provide sort of offline planning and strategy. So, you know, answering questions about, okay, I've gotten some relief. So like, what's next? How do I plan? You know, how do I prepare so that I'm ready for the next disaster and so on. So that's who we are, that we are the Hawaii SBDC. And again, I'm the Maui Center. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mark Ritchie, who is the branch chief at DBED. And he'll start you off into the next sections, which will talk about the programs that they offer.
Okay, great. Aloha, everyone, and thank you, Wayne. My name is Mark Ritchie. I'm a branch chief here at DBED. And just we tried to organize this these presentations kind of on the basis of company growth. And so we're starting out with sort of financing and small business loans. This would be at a point where your company is relatively new, maybe been in business for a couple of years, but really looking at expanding and need that capital for that expansion. And that's one of the things that the Business Development and Support Division at DBED actually is involved with, but also our colleagues at Innovate Hawaiʻi also have loan programs that they'll talk about as well. Then we were going to segue into sort of scaling up operations, manufacturing assistance. We'll look at technology development and commercialization. And then as your company becomes more advanced, larger, having more resources, we'll look at export development. And then finally, we'll talk about some of the programs we have to help companies save on state taxes as your business expands and you hire people. So the first program we were going to look at is sort of financing. And we'll start with our community-based economic development program, which offers grants, technical assistance, and most importantly, loans. Our CBED loan program is focused on businesses involved in manufacturing, wholesaling, and value-added agricultural productions. I don't like the term, but sort of lender of last resort. You have to have a commercial turndown. We're not competing against banks, but a lot of times small businesses, as they're expanding, don't have enough collateral, or they get their credit score isn't high enough. You know, banks are kind of very demanding in the types of things that they require in the underwriting and certain metrics. If you can't meet those, the CBED program would take a look at that to see how we might be able to assist. We are looking at an economic development outcome. So if you're expanding, we're looking at new jobs, services, an increase in business for local suppliers, sort of product inputs, that sort of thing. And also, if you're located in sort of an economically challenged area, your business is located in an economically challenged area of Hawaii. Our loans usually range from $50,000 to $125,000. So this really isn't a micro loan program. It's kind of an expansion program we're looking at assisting you with. And our interest rates, this is all statutory, are from 3 to 6%. So given what interest rates are these days and where they're going, it's a pretty good deal. We also work with other organizations. We have co-lending partners, and that includes Feed the Hunger Fund, the Hawaii Community Reinvestment Corp, and the Hawaiian Economic Development Council, and then also our State Department of Agriculture. So sometimes we'll put in $50,000, they'll put in $50,000 or even more, so that we can actually get into the hundreds of thousands on a loan for expansion. What can the loans be used for? Working capital, construction or improvement of facilities, purchase of equipment, and then payment of sort of production and marketing expenses. So for most of our companies, because these are sort of expansion loans, they're using to pay for equipment and working capital. Those are the two most typical ones. And again, you must have a turndown from a commercial financial institution before we could actually start working with you and trying to do the underwriting to see if we can do a loan with you. So now I would like to turn it over to my colleague, Carol, who is on this call, but I can't see her screen here on the way I have this sort of set up. But Carol, let me turn it over to you. Carol works in our GEMS group here attached to DBED.
Thank you, Mark. So I want to speak about the HiSTEP Collateral Support Program. This program is under a federal program funded by the U.S. Treasury, and the main objective is to assist small businesses obtain funding to start or grow their operations. We want to help these small businesses because this will create jobs and it will generate state tax revenue. This program provides a credit enhancement to help reduce the lender's risk, and we provide a cash collateral to the lender to increase access to capital for these small businesses. We believe that this program has a lot of potential to help a lot of small businesses or nonprofits across the state. And We have like around 21 million funds allocated for this program. Next slide. So since this is a federal program, we have to verify that the loan and the borrower meets the eligibility requirements. Some of these requirements include that the business must be headquartered in Hawaii. The borrower shouldn't have more than 750 employees, and this includes full-time, part-time, or any temporary employees. The maximum loan amount shouldn't exceed $20 million, and the term shouldn't exceed 10 years. So we can provide 20% of cash collateral to the loan, or $1 million, whichever amount is less. And we really want to encourage any minority, woman, or veteran-owned businesses to apply for this program. Next slide. So these loans can be used for different purposes. As you can see, you can use it for working capital, startup costs, franchise fees, any equipment purchases, renovations, and any business acquisitions. Next slide. So the HiCap collateral, the way it works is that any financial institution can become a participating lender under this program, and the lender will conduct their normal loan underwriting, and this is where the lender will identify if the borrower has like that collateral gap. And this is when the lender will speak to their borrower to see if they want to apply to the HiCap program. If they decide to do so, they will apply with us. They will submit their application and any required documentation. We will review eligibility, and once we have verified that they're eligible, the lender will close their loan, and we will deposit the funds into a collateral deposit account to support the loan made by the lender. Next. We also have another program. It's called the HiCap Loans Program, and this program is meant to provide below market loan capital for catalytic projects. These loans can be in the form of a direct loan, participation loan, or a subordinate loan. And we have around $20 million allocated for this program. Next slide, please. So we can do co-lending with private lenders or any banks. And since one of the eligibility requirements is that the project needs to be catalytic, some of the examples may include any community solar projects, maybe a food manufacturing facility, or a 5G testing laboratory facility. So as you can see, it can be different industries like manufacturing, agriculture, or technology. Next slide. This is just our general inbox for the HiCap program. So if you have any questions, you can email us or you can give us a call if you have any additional questions. And that's it for the HiCap program. Now I will present Wayne. He will be talking about the manufacturing assistance program. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Carol. Hi, guys. So my name is the other Wayne, Wayne Layagan from HTDC Innovate Hawaii. So if you don't know already, so Wayne Wong is also in one of our facilities in Maui at the Maui Research and Technology Center. So they've set up operations there with the SBA for the Maui recovery efforts. So just wanted to mention that. So the reason why I'm talking today is to talk about how we can support local manufacturers in scaling up their operations. On the slide you can see here, Innovate Hawaii is part of the MEP National Network. MEP is the Manufacturing Extension Partnership. So there's a center like ours in every state and Puerto Rico. And everything that we do is to help small, medium-sized manufacturers grow their business. In Hawaii, you know, all our manufacturers are very small compared to the ones on the mainland. So some of the ways that we help be able to help you is through training programs and direct service implementation projects. And one reason why you see donuts on there is because Maui does have Krispy Kremes and Oahu doesn't, but also because over 40% of local manufacturers are in the food and beverage industries. Next slide.
Oh, Wayne, maybe before we go to the next slide, we do have somebody in the chat who wants to know, what is the 5G testing lab that you just mentioned?
5G testing lab?
Yes.
Or mentioned it.
Oh.
Carol mentioned it.
That was Carol who mentioned that. Sorry about that. Yeah. All right, we'll come back. We'll come back to that. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. So food manufacturing, again, food and beverage is the biggest type of manufacturing we do here in Hawaii. This slide just showed you some of the typical services that we offer, just to give you an idea of the scope of services that we can do with local manufacturing. A lot of food safety training, a lot of equipment, robotics and automation assistance. So if you're looking for specific type of equipment for your processing or manufacturing needs, contact us and we can see how we can help connect you with one of our equipment experts, just so you can get insight, because when you go to a show, everything looks nice. You don't know too much about the background of the company. We have guys within the industry that can provide some of the insight and some of the questions that you should be asking from your equipment vendors, just to sort of vet them and make sure that you will get the support once you receive the equipment. So again, a lot of food safety stuff like audit prep and assessments. If companies are looking to get into Costco, Whole Foods, Walmart, Sam's Club, they each have their own food safety requirements and audits that you need to pass in order to become an approved supplier. We can definitely assist with that. Process optimization, if you've heard of lean manufacturing, we use a lot of the stuff that Toyota uses to improve your process and reduce downtime or wasteful activities. Next slide. So in general, again, for scaling operations and manufacturing, this is sort of what we have. We sort of talked about production efficiency already with Lean, Six Sigma. Scaling up is with robotics, automation, equipment, food safety and quality. Cybersecurity is real specific. Right now, it's mainly required for a lot of DoD contracts. So if you are looking at that space and you're a manufacturer, we can connect you with one of our experts to discuss and see what kind of assistance we can provide. Workforce development, we're looking into that. We've done apprenticeships in the past, but if you have a specific workforce need or training, we do have online providers that can provide certified training. So if you haven't heard of Tooling U, this is one of the things that we've tried recently with local high schools, and we've sent over 100 students through the program. A lot of them have completed the coursework and passed the certification. So they received a industry recognized certification, manufacturing for foundational certificate. There's other ones for robotics and other ones for more advanced type of manufacturing. Again, this is something that we're trying. So if you're interested, let us know. We can see what kind of curriculum or coursework we can develop for your company. And then quality management systems, again, relates more towards food safety, but depending on what products you make and what your customer needs, we can help you set up things that will meet ISO 9001 requirements, as an example. Next slide. So we talked about scaling up operations. Now we're going to talk about the manufacturing assistance program. If you haven't heard of it before, a lot of people refer to it as MAP. This is a program that provides grants to local manufacturers for qualified expenses. If you'd like to go and look at the details, this QR code will bring you there. I believe Mark will make this presentation available. We can go to the next slide. So right now, what you're seeing on the slide is funding we received for state fiscal year 23. So which was from July 2022 to June 30, 2023. The reason why I listed this down is because each year funding is allocated towards this program from the state legislature. As of the ending of this last legislative session, HTDC did not receive any funding, but we are looking at ways to get funding, but it's still pending. But in general, the minimum award that we can give out to each company is $1,500. The maximum is $100,000, and we can only award one grant award per company per year. So this program, as background, started way back in 2016. It was something that we worked on with the Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii as a way to support and provide access to capital for small manufacturers. And so since 2016, we've received funding, except for the last 2 years. In 2021 and 2022, we received zero funding because of COVID. And again, this year, unfortunately, the bill that had the monies attached to it did not pass or wasn't signed by the governor. So again, stay tuned. We'll notify everyone once we hear word whether we receive funding or not. Okay, next slide. So the Manufacturing Assistance Program is a reimbursement award. So this means for anyone that is interested, you would have to purchase the equipment or other qualified expenses before applying for this grant. However, you are able to receive up to 20% of qualified manufacturing expenses. And then the last bullet, purchased or final payment on or after July 1st, 2020. This was what we considered eligible for the FY23 program. So if we do receive funding this year for FY24, I believe it'll stay at the same date. So if you have anything you purchased in the past, again, on or after July 1st, 2020, and you are a manufacturer and it is a qualified expense, I would encourage you to apply. Next slide. So the 4 categories that would qualify under this program, again, the biggest one that most people go after is the purchase of manufacturing equipment. So manufacturing equipment, the way it's defined in our administrative rules, is anything that is integral to your manufacturing process. So it's not consumables. It's not, one thing that we see a lot of is forklifts. So forklifts normally wouldn't be part of your manufacturing process. So, but if you have liquid filler, something that'll fill cups or something that'll help package your product, those could potentially be qualified. The next one is training on the use of manufacturing equipment. So most times when companies purchase large pieces of equipment or production lines, there is this thing called a factory acceptance test, where either you go out to the manufacturer's facility to inspect the equipment, make sure it works before they ship it, or sometimes they send a qualified technician over to your facility to help with the installation and setup. So those costs could be reimbursed under this program. The next one is energy efficiency in your manufacturing process. Fortunately, this doesn't mean photovoltaic or PV. That's more considered energy generation. Energy efficiency would be along the lines of a variable speed motor in most operations, or anything that you can justify as something that you install that'll reduce the overall energy consumption of your equipment. And then the last one is studying or planning of a new manufacturing facility. So if you are a startup, you're looking to move into your own facility, some of the costs associated with the planning, like feasibility studies are an example. Those costs could be reimbursable. It has to be a third party that does the study or planning. It can't be someone from within the company. And again, for existing companies who are looking to expand, whether to extend their building or anything like that, the studying or planning could be reimbursed under this grant, but not the actual construction. That's one question that we get also. Next slide. All right, so some tips for the application, right? So because this is a state-funded grant and it is for economic development, it has to be related to manufacturing activities that result in company growth and job growth. I think those are the two main focus areas or outcomes that we would expect from companies that are awarded this grant. It's also important to remember that a review committee reviews all the applications, and they determine who receives the award and how much of the award they receive. So at HTDC, we administer the program, we receive all the applications, and we prep the applications as best as we can so that the review committee has all the information they need to make their decisions. The expectation that I like to set with everyone is that, you know, submitting an application does not guarantee an award. So this past year, just so you have some numbers to think about, we had $1 million in funding to award. We received 86 applications. Out of those 86, only 26 were awarded or received funding. We selected more for award, but there was a bunch that did not receive any because there's not enough funding available. So what was done was each application was reviewed, they're scored, and then at the end, companies are ranked top to bottom, so highest score to lowest score, and then the review committee awarded top down. So the companies that scored the highest received an award or much of their award, and then we kept on going down the list until the funding ran out. So that's just to give you an idea on how the process is. So that way, you know, you sort of think about how to approach the application and you know, that your expectations are set for the program. Next slide. This I'm going to talk about because I think it relates to any type of state funding or state award or contract. This thing called the Certificate of Vendor Compliance. In order to do business with the state, whether you're a contractor or you receive grants, you have to show proof of compliance with everything that's stated within the Hawaii Revised Statutes and the Hawaii Administrative Rules. The easiest way to do this is to be compliant with HCE. What compliant means is that you're eligible for state funding. If you're not compliant, you don't contact HCE or HTDC or DBED. You would contact the respective departments, which are the Department of Taxation, the IRS, DCCA, and DLIR, Department of Labor. On the right side of the screen, you can see an example of what a certificate of vendor compliance looks like. This is just an example. This isn't ABC stores or anything. I made that up, but you can see, right? It clearly states whether you're compliant or not. And on the bottom, you can see the 4 departments that determine your compliance. So if you are interested in any type of state funding, state contract, state award, I would recommend you start the process now because it does take a while depending on your specific situation. This past program in FY23 for the Manufacturing Assistance Program, we did info sessions last year in September. And there was one company that, you know, started the process in September and they did not get compliant until March of this year. So it was about 6 months. That's a real bad example, but, you know, it could happen, right? So the worst thing that we would want to see is you being eligible for a grant or program, but then you can't proceed or get considered because you're not compliant. So again, just reiterating, if you're interested, start the process now. And I think on the next slide, Mark, if you go to the next slide, this is where you can go to start the process. Again, there's a QR code. You scan that, it'll bring you to the HCE website. You register, and then you can start the process. And again, at least for our program, you must be compliant at the time of application and remain compliant to receive the state funding. And I think that was the last slide for my section. And in the next section for technology development and commercialization, I would like to bring up Cindy Matsuki, who's our Hawaii SBIR program manager at HTDC, and she'll talk about some of the ways we can help companies who are doing technology development and commercialization.
Yeah. Cindy, how about just maybe take just a quick break for, we had 2 questions and I don't want to get too far behind on those. I think Carol, when she was referring to a 5G testing center, and Carol, jump in here, I think I use that as an example of like a catalytic project that might get sort of one of the loans from that loan program. Is that correct, Carol?
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you.
Okay, great. And then we have another question about the DBED program. DBEDT program supporting manufacturing, do we support manufacturing of non-agricultural products? And yes, very much so. We always emphasize sort of value-added ag just because that's important to the state, but we support all manufacturers with our CBED loan program and basically all of our programs. So thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Cindy. Thank you for letting us take that little question break.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, and then I'm not sure if that was in regards to the manufacturing Innovate Hawaii programs too, and we definitely consider non-ag manufacturing projects. So, okay, I guess we'll get started. So I wanted to let you know in this portion about the federal program and then the state matching program. And so these are research and development grants that you can get. So next slide. So this is the federal grant. It's the federal SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer programs. They're nationally competitive programs that encourage small domestic businesses to engage in federal research and development that has the potential for commercialization, with the goal being that we want to grow innovative companies in the US. So that's why they have this, that's why this program got created. And the way that they fund this program, it's any federal agency with an R&D budget of over $100 million a year has to set aside 3% of their research budget for small businesses. And so it's over $4 billion in total for research for small businesses. So it's great. It's not a loan, it's a grant, it's non-dilutive, so they don't ask for any equity. So, and they call themselves America's Seed Fund. So it's a great source of research capital. It's a 3-phase program. The first phase is if you want to prove your concept. So it's a smaller amount of funding. I think it ranges from 150 to 250,000. This is to show that your idea is actually feasible, that it works. And then the phase 2 is to build a prototype. And so that's actually to prove out that you can build something that will actually work. So that's the phase 2, and it's longer and it's for more money. So I think they run about 2 years, and they fund anywhere from $1 million to $2.5 million, depending on the agency. And the phase 3 of the SBIR program is actually commercialization. So it's not the same agency, not necessarily the same agency that's been funding your phase 1 and 2, but this is when you find a customer that wants what you've built through the SBIR program. And the benefit of being an SBIR phase 3 company is that if it's a government customer, they can sole source your product or your technology. They don't have to bid it out, because the whole beginning part of the SBIR is considered your vetting. So that's how they can fund you without bidding out as a phase 3 SBIR. Next slide, please. Oh, I think we missed one. Was there one in between that? No? Okay. Anyway, there was supposed to be another slide. I want to say most federal agencies have this grant, research and development grant, from NASA, DOD, NSF, NIH, NOAA. There's a ton of them. So I just wanted you to know that they cover a ton of different topics. And even if you might think of a specific industry when you look at an agency, they probably cover a lot of different topics. So like the example that I like is NASA. And sure, they cover space, they cover software and hardware for space applications, but they also do a lot of healthcare and a lot of ag, just because they want to figure out what's going to work in space and all these different things. So they do cover a lot of different other topics aside from specifically space topics too. So these grants are really competitive because they're nationally competitive, but they're definitely worth your time if you can win one, because they basically open a door to the federal government for you. And
they give you funding to fund your research and development that you would have to spend yourself. And they don't really ask for anything back. So I think there are ways to get ahead as well. Like you can look up the agency and see what they've been funding in the past to see if your idea is kind of in line with what they've been funding and what they're interested in. And you can also contact the SBIR program managers and start to connect with them and build a relationship and see, you can ask them their thoughts on what you're working on to see if they think that would be a good idea. And they can also point you to the topic managers, and those are the specific people that put out the grants. So that'll give you a head start in the first place to get the federal grant. Okay, and so on this slide, I wanted to let you know that Hawaii has a state matching fund for Hawaii companies that receive the federal grants. Basically, we want to help companies get a leg up and have a better chance of getting to the next phase. So, and what's nice is Hawaii has been providing this grant since 1988. So we're the longest running SBIR matching grant in the nation. And I think that Hawaii has shown this commitment to moving forward and supporting technology and innovation in the state to grow tech and innovative companies that provide high-paying jobs, because as everybody knows, it's really expensive to live here. So having one job that can afford you to stay here is great. And so I think that is what the tech and innovation companies and jobs help provide. And the SBIR program is to support those jobs. So our grant, the state's grant, will match phase 1s, phase 2s, and 3s. But like Fred mentioned, some of that grant funding was tied up in a bill that the governor did veto this past session. So we are, well, I'm not sure. I don't want to contradict Wayne, but I don't think we're still looking for it, just because a lot of I think the governor's funding is all going to Maui, which is great, which is what it should be. So I think we're just going to try again next year for funding for our grant. But the good news is that for SBIR, the phase 1s are still within our budget to provide. So we can provide a matching grant of up to 50% of your phase 1 federal grant, so up to $75,000 to match. Similarly to Wayne's program, we put together a review committee. So the committee will look at your project and rank it, and then we will try and distribute funds that way. It is competitive. We usually don't have enough funding to give everybody what they've asked for, but we base our scores on economic impact to the state. And so we like to see jobs that have a large market that could potentially provide a lot of high-paying jobs and revenue to the state. Let's see, and then we just want to help companies get to the next stage, either to the phase 2 or the commercialization. And these state funds are much more flexible than the federal funds that you get. The federal funds are restricted to only research and development activities, whereas the state funds can be used for travel, they can use to purchase equipment, or be used to hire people, to hire vendors to help you do IP, and other types of business activities. So that's how we kind of help fund in between the phase 1s and 2s and 3s to kind of get you to that next step. Next slide, please. And then just to let you know, if anybody is interested, there is a phase 0, and we do have funding for the phase 0. And this is to kind of help you put together a competitive proposal as a Hawaii company. So the phase 0 is a reimbursement grant. So if you hire somebody like a proposal writer to help you review your application, we'll reimburse you up to $3,000 for this assistance. And unfortunately, you can't pay yourself. Like, you can't say, I wrote the grant, and I spent all this time, but it is for professional help. And to qualify for this grant, you have to be in Hawaii. And like Wayne mentioned, HCE, you have to be HCE compliant. That's very important. So please remember that. But if you are compliant, you just have to submit proof that you paid somebody, a professional proposal writer, to help you write your grant. And you have to also submit proof that you submitted your phase 1 federal application. You don't have to be awarded the grant, but you just have to show that you submitted it. So that's how you qualify for our grant. And next slide. Oh, sorry, there was one more slide too. That's okay, Mark. I think I just had my contact information. I can stick that in the chat. Usually I do another more in-depth info session in the fall when applications will open up for the phase 1s and phase 0s, and I will go more in-depth into the federal and the state program. So thank you so much for joining us here. Also, if you haven't already, sign up for our newsletter. You can find it at the bottom of our website at htdc.org, and that way you can get all of our announcements for when our grant applications open or all these great info sessions. So I'm going to turn it back to Mark to talk about HiSTEP and export. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, Cindy. Just sort of a check where we're at. We tried to organize this by sort of company growth. So we started out just kind of basic financing, kind of expansion, scaling up, technology development. And now we're at the point where, let's say your company is doing well, you're doing very well in Hawaii, and you're starting to look beyond Hawaii for your products and services. And we do have a program to assist with that, and we call it HiSTEP, which is the Hawaii State Trade Expansion Program. And we work with an SBA, Small Business Administration, grant to administer this program. And this has been around for over 10 years. And each year we get a new grant, which we have to reapply for, but we usually have around $1 million to spend on this program. And the real goal of this is to have sort of a comprehensive approach, meaning from companies new to exporting all the way to companies very experienced in exporting, to help them either get into new markets or expand in markets. And we don't do this in a vacuum. We work with a lot of organizations, including Innovate Hawaii, which is attached to DBED, but we also work with the Small Business Development Centers, the Veterans Business Outreach, Hawaii Pacific Export Council, and also the Department of Ag, and also the Mink Center for Business and Leadership. So what are we really looking at trying to do with this program? We're trying to expand exports and revenue from exports of Hawaii-produced goods and services. We're looking at a larger overall number and a larger percentage of Hawaii-based companies that are active in global markets. And then we want to penetrate new markets for Hawaii-produced goods and services. So eligibility for HiSTEP, these are just because we work off of an SBA grant. You need to be sort of meet the federal definition of an eligible small business concern, certified that the company is not barred from receiving federal funds, and be registered in good standing with what Wayne Layugan had showed us with the Hawaii Compliance Express. And then have a current general excise tax license from the State Department of Taxation. So the three components we have organized around trying to assist Hawaii companies with their export development programs is the first part is just sort of an export readiness program. And what that consists of is a series of training programs, which we usually offer once a month, and it's on some aspect of exporting. And then one-on-one business advising. And our Small Business Development Centers, our Mink Center for Business and Leadership, and the Hawaii Pacific Export Councils has programs for this one-on-one business advising, and we work with them very closely on that. The second component of the program is what we call kind of market entry and expansion activities, and these consist of Hawaii pavilions at major trade shows, where we take a number of Hawaii companies into a trade show, usually overseas, but it can also be in the US if it's an international show with global buyers. But we're also in this category include sales promotions, some consumer shows in other countries, and then e-commerce platforms. And then lastly, we have, requires a separate application, but direct financial assistance for export market development activities. And we'll go into that here in a little more detail. Oops, let me go back. We actually truncated a lot of our slides, Cindy, so same thing just happened to me. I thought we had a little bit more, but let me just go into, for the HiSTEP, the market entry and expansion activities, the types of trade shows that we've done in the past, and actually we'll be currently doing here just actually within a month, is the Tokyo International Gift Show. We go into the Natural Product Show in Anaheim, California, and we do a number of other shows where we feel like we have a critical mass of Hawaii companies that could go into that show and do well. A lot of times we also will provide translators or interpreters to help with the show. We do the complete booth setup, and then it's at a very, very substantially subsidized rate for the Hawaii companies attending those shows. On the company assistance, we have an evaluation committee that looks at proposals. We will be putting out, usually it's in late October, an RFP where then companies respond to that. And what we're really looking at is sort of your export development plan. You know, we're looking at for 4 or 5 pages of something that would actually go into a business plan. It should relate back to your business plan, but it's what you hope to do in exporting. And what we're really looking at is if we do an award of so much money, and usually it's up to $15,000, what type of ROI can you bring back with that? How will that help you? For the export assistance, it can go into paying for, going into a trade show, booth space. It can go for, shipping costs and a number of other things that we'll show you if you go to our website. You can also pay for Gold Key services, which U.S. consulates and embassies abroad offer, which is where they will, actually set you up with distributors, manufacturers, agents, and do a lot of research for you. So this is the website you have to go to. It's invest.hawaii.gov/exporting/HiSTEP. What we really would like you to do is register with us. You're not applying for anything, but you're telling us about yourself so that we can get you on our email list, so that when we have trade shows coming up that we're recruiting for, we'd like to let you know that the HiSTEP Direct Assistance is now open for applications. We usually start accepting those applications in November, and then the deadline is usually the first week in January, and then we try to make the awards by the end of January. And that individual company assistance, that is a competitive program, again, with an evaluation committee. And what we really are looking at is your export development plan, and have you done enough research? Are you going to be successful in this or not? Excuse me. And this is just sort of how some of the registration process works, with our partner organizations, and then the actual components that we have here over on the right side. And if you have any questions, you can contact either myself, my colleague Jamie Lum, or Lyle Fujikawa there as well. And again, we'll make these slides available to everyone that signed up for this webinar, so you'll have our information. So the last program we have, which is also one of our programs here, and that's, let's say you've expanded to the point where you are hiring more people, you're exporting abroad, taking advantage of our programs, If you're a manufacturer, wholesaler, you're in the ag field, you really should think about joining the Enterprise Zone Partnership Program, which is a state-county partnership designed to create jobs and reward companies that are creating those jobs if they're located in economically challenged areas of the state. And those are basically enterprise zones, which the counties choose based on a lot of census tract data. Most participants in a program, as I mentioned, are sort of in the manufacturing, wholesaling, and ag production. And benefits for the Enterprise Zone program can last up to 7 years. So eligible business activities, meaning what kind of industries are you in, here's sort of a list of them. There's a lot of kind of miscellaneous sort of technology-related fields, but again, the biggest ones are ag, manufacturing, and then wholesaling. One of the ones that's not eligible is retail. So this program, in exchange for job creation, it goes back to when you're doing your taxes, tax credits and things and tax benefits that you can take if you are certified by DBED that you met the requirements of the program. So what are the benefits? Why would you want to join this program? Well, first of all, if you're in one of those industries and then you're located in an enterprise zone, what benefits could you take advantage of if you meet the hiring requirements, which we'll go into in just a minute? You'll get 100% exemption from the GET every year for the 7 years. And that applies to the gross revenues from those easy eligible business categories, which I just showed you. You get an 80% reduction of state income tax the first year. Now, it's considered a non-refundable tax credit, which means that it's only from the amount of money that you actually owe the state. So the best time to join this program is when you actually do have tax liability with the state of Hawaii. If you're in sort of a burn mode and you're still in the red, this program isn't going to help you very much because it's only on that year's. You cannot carry it forward, any of these tax benefits. So it has to be in that year, and it's the amount of money that you owe the state. So let's say you do your taxes, you owe the state $1,000, let's say, for tax year 2022. In the first year of the program, you're going to get $800 back on that tax credit. And then it declines by 10% each year for the 7 years. So the next year, let's say you owe $1,000, you'll get 70% of that back. Another benefit of the program is that the unemployment insurance that you pay on your workers, you will actually the first year get 80% of that back. And then that declines by 10% each year. And then the annual certification, each year it's all online. You give us an end of year report to DBED, and then within a week, we certify that you have or have not met the requirements of the program. And as an example of the program, what the requirements are is if you start out, let's say, with 10 employees, we're expecting you to have 11 in the following year when you do your end of year report to us. And then you just have to maintain that. If you're a new company, meaning that you were not there when the enterprise zone was designated. So this is not that onerous, and we don't do fractions of employees. And so if you have from 1 to 9, we're still expecting you to add 1 whole new employee. So if you have 1, we're expecting you to have 2. And we have very detailed GIS maps, geographically maps, that interface maps that you can click on actual addresses and stuff and see if you are in an enterprise zone. But for the state, we just wanted to give you a little idea of where those are. Maui has pretty good coverage on enterprise zones. And with that, we'll ask if we have any questions from the audience. If you want to put anything in the chat, we're coming up on 10 o'clock. So we've gone through our programs in about 1 hour, which is good. And I'd like to see if Wayne, Cindy, or Carol want to add anything else from what we've said. We tried to do more abbreviated version of all of our programs because we were sort of putting a lot in this one webinar. But hopefully for Maui companies, I know there's a lot of recovery and disaster relief that's going to be immediate for some of the declines in business, which I think Wayne Wong has talked about. But these are sort of more long-term programs we'd like to try to make sure Maui companies know about and can get involved in. Wayne, did you have anything you want to add sort of at the end here?
Are you talking about Wayne Wong?
Oh, Wayne Wong, yes. Yeah, our Maui person on Maui. We had planned to come over there in person, but obviously given the situation over there, we changed this to Zoom. We do hope maybe to get over there in person when things kind of get into more recovery mode rather than just sort of disaster relief. But
yeah, I mean, my only comment is that, these are great programs that are out there. And, if you've missed any of the links, you can always call us at the local Maui SBDC, and we can put you back in contact with the specific programs. So this was a very nice overview. And, there's always been the general frustration that when people are looking for assistance or help for growth, that they traditionally are just looking at banks, and banks often are not very forthcoming in terms of supporting startups, especially. So this is a really good awareness building for us. And again, if the two big places to go is the general website, which would be invest.hawaii.gov, and then the other one is for the local SBDC here, and we can repoint you to the right place.
Yeah. Maybe I could ask, since you mentioned banks, Wayne, maybe I could ask Carol a question. For the banks that are participating in that collateral kind of support loan program, I think it's Central Pacific Bank. Are there other banks, or is it?
Right now, we only have Central Pacific Bank as a participating lender, but any bank is welcome to apply, and it's a really easy process. So even if maybe someone is interested in applying and their bank is not a participating lender, we can get them on board pretty easily.
Okay, great. Thank you, Carol. Cindy or Wayne Liugan, Cindy Matsuki or Wayne Liugan, do you have any sort of closing remarks?
I saw a question pop up.
Oh, I think we do have a question I saw pop up here. Oops. We had a question about insurance companies. Can you recommend insurance companies to work with? Maybe Wayne Wong, that might be a question for you.
I mean, it depends on what insurance you're looking for. But a lot of the business oriented ones, even though they may not be headquartered on Maui, they apply as well. So HEMEC and Dietrich, and then locally here, Atlas Insurance Company is a nice agency that carries several lines, all looking at small businesses.
Okay. And then we looked at, I think we have a question from Nicole, funding for marketing online expansion, of existing online businesses. And then there's some more here. Our HiSTEP program, if you're looking at, even if it's sort of a service of some sort, but you're looking at exporting that overseas, our HiSTEP program can be used for those types of expenses, e-commerce expenses. I think some of this also ties into tourism, though, the rest of the question. And I think the HTA, Hawaii Tourism Authority, that's sort of attached to DBED, but that's not our thing, the tourism part. And I think SBA now is just letting us start using some funds for that, but that's still a work in progress. Prior to this, we were kind of prohibited from trying to promote tourism because that was a separate thing.
Okay. So it's okay for us to contact somebody in the office and perhaps have a conversation to figure out how to navigate some of this?
Yes. And I think maybe your first stop might be with Wayne there on Maui, and he'll be a very good traffic controller, kind of bringing in the different programs after he talks to you a little bit more about some of the things you're looking at.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, with that, I guess, let me see. I think that's end of the messages. Yes, and we'll make the presentation available online, maybe on the Innovate Hawaii YouTube page. And then also we'll make the PowerPoint available to everyone who's attended. And with that, do any of our other speakers have anything else they'd like to say before we sign off? Okay. Well, we're watching Maui every day and all the recovery efforts and disaster relief things. So our hearts are with everybody on Maui, and we're glad that we could actually bring some of these programs to you, and that hopefully we'll be able to get over there in person in the coming months to help with sort of recovery and, you know, bringing some of the existing DBED programs and Innovate Hawaii HTDC programs. So with that, we'll go ahead and sign off, and thank you very much to all of our speakers, and especially thank you to Wayne for helping host this and organize this for us. So thank you very much, Wayne.
Welcome.
Wayne, could you put your email in the chat?
We'll let him do that before we sign off so people can grab it.
Thank you.
There we go. Okay, good. Well, aloha, everyone.
Thank you.